Alrighty, so before I turn in for the night, I am going to do the quick preview of the first midweek action of the 2025 MLS regular season. We're going to have 13 games that's going to happen on Wednesday, which means that not every single team is actually going to be playing on this midweek action. So if you're one of those four teams that are not playing, yeah, you probably got very fortunate because this is when the schedule are really started to get very cramped, especially with the way that some of these teams are now starting to be involved in the U.S. Open Cup as well. But with that being said, let us begin by talking about the first of 5 games that start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and that of course is Toronto versus FC Cincinnati. So for TFC, they're coming off of a big win against DC United, and a rare win as well. That's only their second win this season with a 2-4-6 record, and they're facing against a Cincinnati side that is actually now at the top of the Eastern Conference. The draw that both the Union and Crew has actually have allowed Cincinnati to leapfrog both of them to jump in the first position. So yeah, the E's are definitely a little bit tight, at least in the first position so far. But in terms of the head-to-head meeting, yeah, Cincinnati has the advantage with an 8-1-4 record. And keep in mind, Cincinnati this season have only lost once so far this season on the road. And while, yes, that win for TFC was definitely encouraging, you got to remember that was a game where they faced against a relatively weak DC side. It's a whole different story when you face against that side compared to a Cincinnati side that, besides the one stumble that they have against NYCFC, this team has been absolutely stellar when it comes to playing on the road. And it's not a big surprise because Pat Nolan's side for the past couple of years, ever since he took over this team, has always tends to be a very good road team, and this season it feels like it's kind of the same thing again. Now, moving on, we got the Philadelphia Union versus the LA Galaxy. So I already kind of mentioned a little bit about this matchup when I did that deep dive looking at the LA Galaxy, and unfortunately, I mean, I don't know if the historic long winless run to start the season is going to continue. They face against the Philadelphia Union, who has a 7-2-3 record, and definitely looking to trying to get themselves on the winning ways once again after they were just moments away of getting a massive win, a message sending win to the Eastern Conference with the win against Columbus, but weren't able to hold on. And as I said, the Galaxy off to the worst start that any MLS team has ever had with an 0-3 and 9 record. Now, in terms of the head to head, this is kind of interesting because the Galaxy has actually matched up well with the Philadelphia Union. They actually have won 8 of the 12 meeting between both of these teams. The Union have only won once against the Galaxy. Now, keep in mind, it's been a while since both of these teams play against each other because it is an conference matchup. So yeah, I think things have definitely changed ever since both of these teams meet each other last time. There's no doubt that the Union are going to be heavy favorites coming into this one. I mean, similar to what I said about the game between Cincinnati versus Toronto, you would expect the team that is near the top of the Eastern Conference should be able to get the win in this one. But hey, stranger things has happened, and especially if you're the Galaxy. I mean, coming off of just two of the most brutal losses you can imagine a team can suffer. One in a 7-0 thrashing that they had against the Red Bulls in that MLS Cup rematch, and then the 1-0 loss that they suffer where they gave up zero shot in the entire game to their opposition and still lost because of an own goal. That is something that is just not only brutal to recover, but really this is a game that, for the Galaxy, they better hope the Union is not going to do something similar to what the Red Bulls did because this Union team that can definitely score goals in bunches, and I'm pretty sure Galaxy fans are saying that, well, if we're gonna go 13 games without a win, at least we need to at least try in this one, and it's not gonna be easy if that is the case. Now, moving on, we got Orlando versus Charlotte FC. So, Orlando, yeah, lately they have had a lot of draws this season. I mean, the draws actually are piling up with them getting 6 draws so far this season, which I think that's the most that any MLS team have had so far this year with a 4-6-2 record against a Charlotte team that, as I mentioned, they are in the midst of a pretty busy road stretch where 9 of their next 11 games is going to be away from Bank of America's stadium, and there's no doubt that this team is going the wrong direction right now, especially with the way that Dean Smith's side has had their issue when it comes to playing on the road. Now, in terms of the head-to-head meeting, 4-4-2 in favor of Orlando City, and this is also, of course, the rematch of that epic first round matchup in the playoffs last season, in a matchup where Charlotte was just minutes away of moving on into the next round, only for them to concede a late penalty and eventually lose in a PK shootout. There's no doubt that Charlotte fans still remember that painful moment, and they no doubt will want to have some revenge in this one. But if they are going to do so, they need to be better on the road this season. I mean, it hasn't been great whatsoever ever when it comes to their road form, and they're facing against an Orlando side that, again, they I think the frustrating thing for Orlando fans is that they need to stop drawing games because they're drawing way too many games this season, whether it's entertaining draw like they have done at home or just so many nil-nil draws that they have on the road this season. Now, moving on, we got the Wilfred Nancy derby. I mean, would you still call this the Wilfred Nancy derby whenever Montreal play Columbus? I mean, I guess maybe you could still say that. And especially, I'm going to come up with some of these derby names because we are kind of heading to a week where it is starting to become Heineken rivalry week, especially this weekend. We got some very spicy rivalry that's going to be happening this weekend. But Montreal, of course, they avoid the fate the Galaxy had of becoming the worst team to start the or become the first team in MLS history to start 12 games without a win. With their first win last week against NYCFC, and now they officially have a one next to the win column. 1-3-8 is their record, whereas Columbus is 7-4-1. Now, in terms of head-to-head matchup, 16-6-10 in favor of Columbus, and so far ever since Wilfred Nancy was let go by Montreal. They have not beat Columbus ever since that. It's safe to say that Wilfred Nancy still has an animosity toward Montreal in terms of the front office doing dirty on him, and it doesn't matter if he's facing against a good Montreal team or a weak Montreal team. He's definitely going to show no mercy in this game. He's definitely going to once again haunt his old team, and certainly once again frustrate the fans and kind of also make the fans once again be very frustrated with their front office of why in the world did they let go of Wilfred Nancy in the first place. That is going to go down as one, if not the biggest mistake that Montreal will regret in their history. And imagine if he would have stayed with Montreal, how much of a difference it would have made the fact that Montreal would have been the team that Columbus would be right now, and a team that could regularly competing and maybe even have an MLS Cup on their disposal. Consider what Wilfred Nancy has done with Columbus ever since he came into that job a couple of years ago. Now, moving on, we got DC versus NYCFC. So I think it's safe to say that this is kind of a desperation derby because, yeah, both of these teams are coming off of brutal losses over the weekend. For DC, losing to TFC, that is definitely inexcusable, especially giving up so many chances to a TFC side that hasn't really had a lot of attacking threat. That's also inexcusable. For NYCFC, they also lost to a Canadian team in Montreal, and yeah, that's easily as inexcusable, especially you're playing at home, which is what they're supposed to be good this season, and what they're supposed to take advantage in terms of getting wins, but losing to Montreal at home, and especially also make them look good with creating a lot of chances as well. Yeah, both of these teams are definitely looking to try to bounce back after suffering just horrendous loss over the weekend. Now, in terms of the head-to-head matchup, 12-4-7 in favor of NYCFC. And again, this is also kind of matchup where something also kind of had to give because, NYCFC, we know they are absolutely dog water when it comes to being on the road. But DC, they have been, for the most part, been pretty poor at home as well. I mean, it's gotten a little bit better, at least in terms of their home form. They're definitely getting more home wins compared to the entire part of the second half of last season, where in the second half of the last season, they didn't get a single home win and get a win at Aldi Field whatsoever. So you gotta say something has to give. Somebody probably is gonna end the narrative that they have, whether it's their road form that with NYCFC or their home form that is DC United, or maybe this will end in a draw. And again, anytime when there's a desperation derby and it ends in a draw, I don't think either of these team is going to be very happy with the result. Also, I just realized that my thing is not even charging here. Oh, you know what? Because I didn't even plug this all the way. So yeah, now I have plugged it in, and I think my computer is charging now. It is. It is charging now. So yeah, no wonder when I look on the screen, why is it feeling so dark? Yeah, it's because it's about to run out of battery. Let's see. Let me make sure it is charged. Yep, it is charging right now. Anyway, moving on into now looking at the 8:30 p.m. Eastern slash 9 p.m. Eastern kickoff because originally, pretty much all of these games was gonna start the same time, but we do have one game that starts a little bit later because it's on FS1, and then we had one game that will start 30 minutes later out of the Central Time region because yeah, I mean we're getting to that part of the year where Texas is gonna get a lot of heat wave, and especially again, I'm kind of surprised the fact that as we get into the summer, I wouldn't be surprised this might be the first time we will see Austin have to push back their kickoff because of heat. They already mentioned that the temperature could reach well above 100 degrees, and obviously playing at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, while it is getting close to the nighttime, it is still not close enough for the weather to really cool off, and yeah, that's why they of course moved their game to 9 p.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Pacific, which I feel like that should have been the set time for the remaining part of Austin game, but obviously MLS does not allow that because of their certain rule with the Apple TV deal of scheduling. But let us first talk about the first 8:30 p.m. Eastern start, and that of course is Nashville versus the New York Red Bulls. So both of these teams kind of getting off or coming off of big wins last week. For Nashville getting a 2-1 win last week to improve their record to 6-2-4 against Charlotte. That was definitely a big win for them. And for the Red Bulls, we all know what happened last week when they kind of created a red wedding part two by dropping a 7 spot on the LA Galaxy, with now having a 5-3-4 record. Now, in terms of the all-time meeting, the Red Bulls have actually never lost to Nashville SC in their history. It's a 3-4-0 record that they have. So yeah, that's doesn't really quite bode well for Nashville, especially this is a Nashville team that hasn't really found a lot of consistent this season. While there's been times that they've been playing really well, like they did in the last game against Charlotte, it's all about consistency and whether or not if they can start to string a couple wins in a row. That's going to be something that BJ Callahan would want to see with this team, and especially when they're facing against a Red Bull side that, well, yes, they have not played well whatsoever on the road, just like their inner city rival NYCFC. They would be at least confident knowing that they have never lost to Nashville in their club history. In the 7 meeting, Nashville has not got a single win, so they're hoping that would stay firm in this one, especially after a 7-0 beatdown that you have. There's two ways you can see it. Either you can ride that momentum heading into the middle of the week, or they're gonna definitely suffer a bit of a letdown after that 7 goal burst that they had against the defending MLS Cup champion. And speaking of which, that's also what I will say about Minnesota heading into this game against the Houston Dynamo, because it's kind of the same thing I would say about the Red Bulls, where I'm very interested to see how Minnesota would look coming into this one. Obviously, the win against Inter Miami, it's definitely going down as one of the best wins that Minnesota has ever had in their club history, and at least in the regular season. But now, after there's such a big win and a win that kind of feel like Minnesota kind of won the MLS Cup with how crazy the atmosphere was at Allianz Field. Now, how are they going to refocus now that they're facing against a lesser team that is the Houston Dynamo, who currently have a 2-4-6 record, whereas Minnesota has a 6-4-2 record. As this game starts at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. In terms of the head-to-head, Minnesota does have the advantage with 10-5-7 record over the Houston Dynamo. And recently, Minnesota actually has done pretty well against the Dynamo. I remember when what used to call BBVA Compass Stadium, before now it's called Shell Energy Stadium. That used to be a house of horror for Minnesota. Whenever Minnesota play against the Houston Dynamo, they just simply cannot win when they play against them on the road. But lately, it's been kind of the opposites. Now the Dynamo simply cannot win at home when they play against Minnesota. And knowing Minnesota has been a very good road team, not a big surprise. I mean, the style that they play under Eric Ramsey is literally the style that fits perfectly for a road team. I mean, I would expect they should get another win in this one, but I would also not be surprised if they get a draw or even lose this game, because I mean, anytime when you have that big of a victory against Inter Miami, and that I'm still kind of feeling the after effect of such a big victory like this. It is very hard to try to refocus, and now you gotta focus on a lesser opponent that is the Houston Dynamo. But we'll see whether or not if they can do so and not have that big let down that they had after a big win like they did on Saturday, and continue the great role performance that this Minnesota team has had, especially with the way that the Houston Dynamo this season. Yeah, for the most part, they've been pretty woeful this year. Now, moving on, we have the first big rivalry that we would see in terms of Heineken rivalry week. So they said that they include this week midweek action as Heineken rivalry week, even though we don't really see a lot of those big rivalry until the weekend action. But this is definitely one of the appetizer in this Midwest derby between St. Louis and Sporting KC. And as I said in the first ever meeting, this rivalry kind of has really lost its luster because both of these teams have not been playing relatively well, and that kind of continues the theme in the second and final meeting, with St. Louis currently have a 2-4-6 record, and Sporting KC have a 3-1-8 record. And if you would have told me that when both of these teams meet each other again a little bit later in the season, that now that Sporting KC have a better record than St. Louis. I mean, I know St. Louis wasn't really playing well either when they faced against SKC, but SKC was winless coming into that one. They just fired Peter Remise and things were going for a transition, but now it feels like between these two Midwest sides, it feels like it's Sporting KC the one that is reaping the reward of them letting go of their longtime manager and getting the new interim head coach boost, and started to play much better in these last couple of games compared to St. Louis, that is just still kind of stuck in idle because of the negative tactics that Olaf Melber tends to use with this team. Now, in terms of the head-to-head matchup, 4-2-3 in favor of Sporting KC, as this game starts at 8:45 p.m. Eastern, 5:45 p.m. Pacific. But we know it's going to start at 8:55 p.m. Eastern, 5:55 p.m. Pacific. It's going to kick off about 15 minutes later than the other 8:30 p.m. Eastern games. So yeah, again, I know this rivalry kind of lost its luster in terms of the way that it's two teams that are not doing very well and most likely might not even make it to the playoffs this season. But still, bragging rights is bragging rights, and I've also said that sometimes in a rivalry game like that, especially when you're struggling, if you can get a big win like this, you can carry that momentum and really not only give the belief of your team, but also just kind of carry that and revitalize your season. So we'll see whether or not if that's going to be the case. And I think it's kind of been the case at least a little bit for Sporting KC, because when they finally got that win against St. Louis to get their first win of the season, fresh off the firing of Peter Remise, they have definitely looked much more respectable compared to the disastrous start they had in the beginning of this season. And then moving on, we got Austin FC and Atlanta United. So talk about another desperation derby. I mean, both of these teams are definitely desperate to try to get on the winning column. For Austin, yeah, these last couple of weeks they have clearly gone the wrong direction, and not only the fact that the goal scoring has dried up for this team, but now the defense feel like it has kind of took a toll whatsoever. And against an Atlanta team that have been pretty much struggling mightily on the defensive end, and now it's kind of took a toll on the attack as well, where the attack has just been firing nothing but blanks throughout this season. Now, as I mentioned, this game was pushed back because of the heat, so now it will start at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and there's only one other meeting between both of these teams. Austin won the only meeting between both of these teams, and I also would not be surprised if this could be a really low-scoring game. Like, if you are looking for some entertaining soccer and a lot of high-scoring kind of affair, this is definitely not one that you would expect it. And that's shocking to say, because these are two teams that I feel like both of these teams in this offseason kind of gone through the same process where they really beefed up their attack and spent a lot of money to improve the attack. And yet we're talking about two of the worst attack in the league. I mean, that just shows you how it's a classic say cliche of money can't buy happiness and success, and it can definitely does not buy these teams some goal scoring ability, because the $50 million attack for Atlanta United has been toothless at times, and the same goes for Austin FC, where the 30 million attack that they have for the most part has been pretty much dormant throughout the season. Now, moving on into the late West Coast game and the 9:30 p.m. Eastern start. We start off with RSL versus the Portland Timbers. So this is the only game that starts at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. RSL have a 4-1-7 record, whereas the Timbers have a 6-3-3 record. And I would say for the Portland Timbers, this is a classic trap game, isn't it? I mean, it is very tempting for them to, of course, look forward to the big Cascadia Derby in the that game, especially against an RSL team that, they still haven't really been doing very well so far this season. I mean, they've been heavily reliant on Diego Luna, but it gets to a point where, yeah, you can't simply just rely on one man and continue to get yourself back on track. But in terms of the head-to-head meeting, 15, 11, and 14 in favor of RSL. And like I said, for the Timbers, they got to be worried not to look ahead. I mean, it is very tempting to look ahead and knowing that you're facing against your biggest rival over the weekend in Heineken Rivalry Week, but you got to remember that you have to get a result in this one. And I would say the same for some of these teams that have big rivalry games coming in the weekend, where it's very tempting to, of course, look forward to their next game. But I think of all these teams that have to face their big rival over the weekend, I think Portland probably has the one that they have the weaker opponent in the middle of the week, but on the weekend they do face their rival, and that's just kind of a classic example of a trap game brewing all over. And I would say that kind of is the same case in terms of the next one, where Miami probably might have a trap game in this one against the San Jose Earthquakes. Though I will say that the Quakes have definitely been playing much better. And also, by the way, did I mention the fact that I'm actually attending this game? Yeah, I am insane. Person decided to attend two straight MLS game back to back match week, especially having the privilege to potentially see Messi play for the second time in 3 days. And I say potentially with a big quotation mark, because yes, even though Messi has arrived here in the Bay Area, and it feels like the fan cannot stop bothering him knowing the image that shown fans greeting him at his hotel. I mean, again, this is another example where I just feel like, well, like for all those Messi fanboys, he's the man alone. I mean, I understand that you want to see him and you want to say hi and even want to take a picture, but sometimes he needs to have some private time. I don't like when people are just kind of keep bothering left and right. And I understand that's kind of what he has built in terms of being the global superstar. But sometimes you need to just leave the man alone. Let him have some private time whatsoever. And I can't imagine when I go to the stadium tomorrow how it's gonna be. I mean, I'm also gonna expect the fact that going into the stadium it's gonna be tough, because when I went to Allianz this weekend, it was pretty tough to try to get in. Probably the toughest I've ever had to go in terms of following the lines, and that's at Allianz, where Allianz actually have a couple of entrants for people to in. Waste have only have one main general public entrance, so I'm gonna have to make sure I gotta get there as early as possible, and it's not easy considering I gotta also battle traffic for on Wednesday as well. But nevertheless, in terms of this game, the Quakes have a 5-1-6 record. Miami has a 6-3-2 record in the head-to-head. There's only one other meeting between both of these teams. Miami, of course, won that only meeting, and I remember that because I actually attended that game as well, where Miami was able to win 1-0 against the San Jose Earthquakes at PayPal Park. But nevertheless, again, for the Quakes, I know they're gonna be definitely be up for it in this game. Even though I know you could also say the Quakes might have a bit of a trap game because they have their own derby to attend this weekend, where they face against a team that pretty much they've been loving to do business in terms of trades in the New England Revolution. I'm pretty sure the Quakes player is going to be up for it. I mean, anytime when you play against Miami, you're going to be up for it because you're facing potentially the greatest player of all time. But really, for Inter Miami, I feel like not only they got to be careful not to fall into that trap, knowing that they got a bigger game coming in the weekend against Orlando, and that's kind of also why I'm a little bit surprised that Messi may be playing in this one, and Javier Mascherano maybe not resting his guys. Consider when you have to make a trip to the West Coast on a short week, that feels like that's a little bit too much, especially with the way that you can clearly see this team have suffered the fatigue level with the performance that they performed the last couple of games. But nevertheless, the Messi circus has to continue, and he has to show up. And I'm assuming he's probably going to show up, whether if he's going to come off the bench or not. I have a feeling he's going to show up, and if you don't believe me, just look at the tickets prices for this game as well. I mean, I thought the tickets prices were ludicrous in the beginning, and I thought maybe it will drop at like what I saw at Allianz Field, and maybe it could be the case leading up to game days. But last I checked, the minimum cost to get into the stadium is like $450. Yeah, that is absolutely ridiculous. And for those of you wondering how much I paid for this game, I actually didn't pay the general cost of the game. I actually bought a marquee mini game plan that the Quakes, of course, had it. And at that time, I was kind of taking a gamble, thinking that it's a good investment, knowing that some of the games part of the marquee mini game package that the Quake has are games that I was going to attend in the first place. That game package include the two LA team, both at Stanford and Levi Stadium, the game against San Diego FC, which will be a Sunday night soccer game, and then the final game of the season against Austin FC as well. That I was thinking about planning to go as well. So yeah, like I said, I just feel like that was a good investment and hope that, it will pay off in a big way. And boy, it definitely had paid off in a big way because I feel like I got even a bigger deal in terms of that compared to just pay this game in full in the first place. But that being said, moving on in the next one, we got San Diego FC versus the Colorado Rapids. So San Diego has a 6-2-4 record, whereas the Rapids have a dead even 4-4-4 record. All time meeting. Both of these teams, of course, met each other early in the season. This is actually the second opponent that San Diego at least have some history against in the Western Conference, and Colorado was able to win that one. But there's no doubt that both of these teams are heading in opposite direction. Whereas San Diego is definitely starting to get themselves back on track after they kind of had a bit of a blip in the last couple of weeks. Colorado is going downhill right now. I mean, things have looking bleak for Chris Armour's side, from a team that has looked very inconsistent to now a team that just simply look inconsistent bad. And the fact that, if they want to ride out the cycle, it doesn't help the fact that they face against a San Diego side that they know they want revenge after what happened earlier um this season. Especially, I think they were the first team, the Colorado Rapids, to beat San Diego. Didn't they? Yeah, I don't, if I remember, I think they were the first team to beat them, especially on on the road. So there is no doubt that San Diego probably didn't forget, and they're looking to try to get revenge and get themselves a win in this short head-to-head meeting between both of these teams. And then last but certainly not least, this is a big surprise that they decided to put LAFC and Seattle in the midweek action. And I get it, yes, because this midweek action is still part of Heineken rivalry week, and you could say that, I know everybody will talk about Al Trafico when it comes to LAFC, their biggest rival, but I argue Seattle might be just as big of a rival for them compared to the Galaxy. Consider, when it comes to the big matchup, they always tend to play against each other in these playoff games. We see it last season as well, with Seattle getting the better of LAFC, and not to mention, Seattle for a while had a really long winless run against LAFC. LAFC basically owned Seattle for a long spell of period before the Sounders finally put an end to that in that playoff series last year, eliminating LAFC in the second round. But in terms of the head-to-head meeting, 13-9-7 in favor of LAFC. And again, this is a matchup that I think, when you look at all of the matchup, this is probably the one that is the most marquee matchup of them all, because again, it's between two really good teams, and it's easy again for both of these teams to also kind of overlook what they have in the weekend action, because both of these teams are going to face against their most hated rival, with LAFC facing against the Galaxy and El Trafico. Seattle, of course, playing against the Portland Timbers in the Cascadia Derby. But I think it wouldn't be kind of like a trap game, knowing the fact that I'm pretty sure at first both of these teams are going to be real super focused about this game, because like I said, anytime when both of these teams play against each other, they do not like each other whatsoever. There's always be kind of like that big game kind of playoff atmosphere whenever LAFC and Seattle play against each other, and we'll see what the latest chapter of this rivalry will bring between both of these teams that always tends to meet in big games, especially in the playoffs as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review for match week number 13, at least the midweek action. And did I say review? I meant preview in terms of match week number 13. It's the first midweek action. And again, because we have midweek action, it's going to be almost impossible for me to do reviews and preview, but I'll try to do my best in terms so that I wouldn't be surprised if I might not even get a chance to do the preview for the weekend action, which I actually think I'm probably not going to do that, because I just realized that this weekend we have Heineken rivalry. I absolutely need to do a preview of Heineken rivalry week. That would be a tragedy for me, and a letdown for all my loyal viewers watching this channel, to not do a preview in terms of Heineken rivalry week. But one thing I will say is that stay tuned for that video. That video might upload relatively late on Friday, because most likely I'm going to have to spend Thursday and Friday as the 2 days in terms of doing review for part 1 and part 2. And especially, I probably won't be able to watch most of these games, because I'm going to be attending this one, and I have to get to the stadium early, knowing that it's going to be an absolute mess to try to get into PayPal for that. We're gonna probably have the most fans ever attend a Quakes game in quite some while against Inter Miami. And that, yeah, it's gonna be it's definitely gonna be tough for me to try to get in, and also not to mention trying to catch some of these action. I mean, originally I was maybe thinking about just try to catch all these early games and then go to the Inter Miami versus Quakes game. That's not gonna happen. I won't make it simply if I decide to do it like that. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.